Rich Eisen has become about as synonymous with the NFL as you can possibly be without being a player or coach. His yearly coverage of the draft and his legendary sports talk show have made him an icon and also built him an impressive empire to call his own. His journey is one that we found personally fascinating and wanted to document for the world to see. This video will go over how Rich Eisen built a sports empire and the incredible journey that coincides with the making of a legend. On FootballLore, we post football documentaries as often as possible. We are striving for 1,000 subscribers this year and would love your support. Richard Eisen was born in June of 1969 in Brooklyn. While he was born in the hustle and bustle of the big city, most of his childhood was spent on Staten Island. As a child, he had a love for sports, but also was able to excel academically. After graduating, he decided to attend the University of Michigan, which is often ranked as a top 25 college in the country. Here, he would begin his journalism career as an editor for the sports section of the school paper. The Michigan Daily is no small paper. It has a circulation of 7,500 papers, and immediately his talent was clear to readers. Eisen also became a member of the Pi Kappa Phi fraternity, somehow managing studies, a social life, and editing a paper. In 1990, he graduated with his Bachelor of Arts degree and began his search for a journalism job. Initially, Rich had to move home to Staten Island to gain some experience. He became a writer for the Staten Island Advance for a 3-year period. This allowed him to gain experience close to home and also learn the ins and outs of the business. Rich decided that he wanted to pursue his master's degree in journalism and ended up attending the Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern University. This college has produced 40 Pulitzer Prize-winning journalists and is one of the best schools for journalism in the nation. While attending, Eisen became a writer for the Chicago Tribune while in school and ended up graduating with his master's in 1994. After graduation, Eisen decided he wanted to move closer to the Mecca of entertainment and relocated to California. While most people moved to Los Angeles, Rich was able to secure a job as a sports reporter for a local network in Redding, California. He spent 2 years working for the network while also doing other jobs as a correspondent for the Medill News Service. These 2 years would allow Rich to showcase his talent at crafting a great story alongside his passion for sports, and he became a fan favorite on the network. This talent led to him attracting the eye of people in charge of talent at ESPN. And in 1996, Rich would get his major break when he became part of an on-air duo with Stuart Scott for the network. At the time, ESPN was at its peak, and this was the equivalent of hitting the sports journalism lottery. Obviously, he had natural talent, but this would put him on the path to becoming a household name. Eisen was loved by all when on ESPN. His mix of humor and wide knowledge at a variety of sports made him a natural fit for the network. He became such a star that he was often tasked with important interviews and events. He would host the Home Run Derby for the MLB, host reality shows for the network, and host many radio shows on a daily basis. He was doing everything he could to accelerate his career, and as he took on more projects, his fame with sports fans across every corner of the country began to take notice. While Rich did love sports in general, he always had been most in love with the sport of football. There was a new network that had recently been brought to fruition that focused solely on the NFL, and they needed a star for the new project. Eisen knew he would be a perfect fit. Eisen became host of NFL Total Access for the NFL Network in 2003. This would see him taking a leading role in NFL journalism. 2003 was a year of big changes for Eisen, as it was also the year he would marry his current spouse, Susie Schuster. Susie is a journalist in her own right, and together the two would bond over their passion for sports and reporting. The pair is still married and raising 3 children in a suburb of LA. NFL fans absolutely adored Rich's presentation style and his ability to understand the game despite a high level of experience. One thing that has always stood out about Rich is the fact that very few journalists can demonstrate such an understanding of the game without having played at the NFL level. Eisen manages to do that without even a college game under his belt. Eisen was assigned many important NFL jobs, but one of the events he has become most associated with is the NFL Combine. The Combine is a chance for all draft prospects to showcase their athletic talent to teams potentially interested in drafting them. Before Eisen, many considered the event a snooze fest. And while it still has boring moments, when you have someone like Rich Eisen engaged in the coverage, there will always be a few highlights. A tradition that many may know him for is the yearly event where Rich Eisen runs a 40-yard dash while in a full suit. This tradition was started in 2005 after Terrell Davis challenged Rich to run the drill. not one to back down from a challenge, especially one that would make great content. Eisen complied. He ran a 6.77, but for being out of shape and in a suit that isn't bad. Since that year, it has become an event in its own right, and he even uses it to raise money for charity. The hashtag #RunRichRun is a campaign that raises money for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, and since its start, he has raised millions for the charity. Beyond just the combine, he also hosts the Thursday Night Football pregame, halftime, and postgame shows, and is often on location for all major NFL events through the year. In 2010, he would make an incredibly intelligent business decision to launch his own podcast, the Rich Eisen Podcast, which would take him from contracted entertainer to producer of content instead. While his salary from ESPN and the NFL Network were good, nothing compares to owning what you produce entirely. He still works for NFL Network to this day, and estimates are that it earns him $5 million a year, but that is based on unconfirmed reports. Initially, the podcast was supposed to stay as a simple production, but it continued to gain popularity in a way only Rich Eisen shows can. After 4 years of hosting the podcast, it was picked up by DirecTV and turned into a talk show, which is the Rich Eisen Show we know today. The next 5 years would see his show continue to grow a huge following, and he would turn into more of a household name with each episode. While this situation was great for Eisen financially, an unforeseen circumstance would turn that up to an 11. When you are working with a network, you are taking home a small piece of the financial pie, and in 2019, Eisen was informed that DirecTV would be closing down their division in charge of Eisen's show. He was faced with the options of either moving to another network or attempting to build the relationships and production on his own. He decided that after decades in the industry, he would try to build a business of his own, and he would never look back. Rich and his wife, Susie, became the owners and operators of The Rich Eisen Show and continued to score famous guests from all walks of life. At first, they just needed to know that they could run one show on their own, but after a few months of incredible success hosting The Rich Eisen Show on his own, another incredible opportunity would present itself. Peacock approached Rich Eisen about putting the show on their streaming service. This was a new situation for Rich. In the past, the network would negotiate contracts and handle these things, since they were technically the owners of the show, but now Rich could negotiate with NBC directly. The exact numbers on the contract are not known, but considering that NBC generates $33 billion a year and was dumping tons of money into streaming, we can assume that Rich suddenly had pockets even fatter than before. The Rich Eisen Show would spend 2 years with NBC, and over that time, it would become the Rich Eisen Network as it added more shows to its production. What the Football with Susie Schuster and Amy Trask was added, along with the Rich Eisen Basketball Show, Overreaction Monday, and Just Getting Started. This diversified the holdings of the company and also demonstrates the future business plans of Eisen. He wants to build a network under his brand, generating him income for generations to come. In 2022, the show would jump again to the Roku network and also shifted its radio broadcasting to SiriusXM. Not much is known about the terms of these contracts, but financially it appears to be in line to the NBC deal previously. At this point, he had his own network and was still on the NFL network on a regular basis. Between these two, Rich is rolling in money, and that is without considering the fact that his wife is an entrepreneur in her own right. We need to talk about the money, just to put the scale of his empire into perspective. Estimates are that between the NFL network, SiriusXM, Roku network, and YouTube, Rich Eisen is making between $5 and $10 million a year. That is absolutely huge money, and considering the network keeps expanding with more and more shows, that number is likely to keep accelerating. Making millions of dollars a year would make anyone incredibly wealthy, but Rich Eisen goes a level beyond most people in his position and is also a proponent of smart financial investments and wealth management. Those millions are immediately being put back to work to keep earning even more for the family. Rich doesn't talk too much about his investments and has said he isn't much of a stock picker previously. But even if he does the standard practice of locking away some funds in a generic stock fund, he's compounding that wealth on a yearly basis. Rich and his wife, Susie, also have built a sizable real estate portfolio. In 2015, they sold a home for $3.2 million in Beverly Hills. That sale netted the couple $1 million profit. But beyond that, in the years since they acquired another multi-million-dollar property they reside in now, there is also the fact that one of the largest assets Rich owns is his show. While he has contracts with Roku and Sirius, the overall value of the brand is also attributed to his net worth. These numbers alone would be enough to make him elite as an entrepreneur. But when you factor in the fact that his wife, Susie Schuster, also has had an illustrious entertainment career, the numbers get wilder. Susie worked for ESPN, the NBA, college football, and the Huffington Post, meaning that both members of the household have built their journalism to the point of huge financial gains. And Eisen has even mentioned that Susie is crucial to all of the success of the Rich Eisen Network so far. The pair is a power couple, and with the spending on media growing year over year, chances are the largest contract is yet to come. Speaking of future contracts, what is the future outlook of the Rich Eisen Network? The first is a continuation of branching out into different genres to diversify the audience. Obviously, the core of the show will always be sports-focused. However, Rich has done a great job of making sure that he has guests that aren't necessarily only relevant to sports. This is beneficial to both parties. Rich gets exposure to this person's fans, who may not be aware of him, and the guest gets exposure to Rich's loyal audience. Guests like Henry Cavill continue to expose the network to larger audiences outside of their core demographic. It is also forward-thinking for Rich to expand into other sports, while he covers everything from baseball to badminton now. Branching out with the NBA podcast on his network adds another revenue stream. The focus on the NBA is a similar model to what he saw with the NFL network. Build content specifically around one league, and over time you become associated with it directly. He still is working with the NFL, but replicating this on a smaller scale within his network is forward-thinking in terms of growth. A great avenue with potential for growth is also leaning more heavily on subscriptions and merchandise. Platforms like Twitch and Kick showcase how even having a few thousand paying subscribers can produce outsized financial returns. It's estimated 1.3 million people listen to the network in one way or another every day. If even 5% of those were willing to pay a premium subscription, the money would be phenomenal. Merchandise is another great way to increase revenue for the network beyond adding more shows. Merchandise sales are high margin, meaning that for every mug or t-shirt sold, it is the equivalent of thousands of views on a piece of content. You don't need to be selling millions of mugs and shirts to make a sizable income. You just need to be able to create products that your die-hard audience will love to consume. Considering Rich has been able to create an entire media empire for decades, there is a huge following of those die-hard fans who would love to support him. These avenues also sustain growth without selling out. If there is an optional premium subscription that people aren't forced to buy, it doesn't harm the relationship with his audience. People choosing to buy merchandise to support the show are not feeling forced to purchase a mug. The strength of the personal brand isn't harmed. We've seen plenty of podcasters manage to destroy their brand, but Rich Eisen has decades of media experience to understand what plays are the right ones to make for his business. He also has played it smart by making sure his network partnership deals don't run incredibly long, allowing him to negotiate based on his show's new growth instead of being locked in at a rate unfair to the show's success. Sure, this is a gamble. On the off chance your show loses popularity, it could lead to a smaller contract. But so far, Rich has had success betting on himself at every turn. Overall, the fact that Rich has been able to transform from an anchor on ESPN to owning a production that employs dozens of people and generates millions on its own is impressive. The work ethic to do this, alongside his additional work with the NFL Network, is a testament to the sheer amount of willpower and drive Rich Eisen has. You can tell that he is working to build something larger than himself, because for most people, making millions from one job would be enough. Rich is a pioneer when it comes to the digital landscape. Few people would have the nerve to bet on themselves and purchase their show back, especially when the option of riding the easy lane with a network is an option. The future of the Rich Eisen Network is in good hands. Even beyond everything we have discussed so far, there are plenty of other projects and ventures that Rich has contributed to and that add to his empire. In 2007, he authored a book titled Total Access, which went on to sell well and still has decent monthly sales to this day. He also hosted a reality series for the network TNT, which was titled The Great Escape. It didn't have a long run, but still came with a pretty nice payday. He has branched out out into acting, with regular roles on The Odd Couple and the comedy show Midnight. He's in Madden, Disney shows, and honestly has his hand in a bit of everything. His iconic status as a sportscaster has landed him plenty of roles, and it honestly is another avenue of expansion for his media empire if he decides to pursue it. He also has been known to use a lot of his success to help with charitable efforts. Like we mentioned earlier, he has raised millions of dollars for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. However, he also has donated his time and his money to dog rescues, cancer research, and more. The only thing he really needs to complete the legacy of his career at this point would be an Emmy. The reward has always evaded him, but he was nominated in 2022 for an Outstanding Studio Sports Show Emmy. Rich Eisen's legacy in sports journalism is marked by his remarkable versatility, insightful analysis, and engaging personality, making him one of the most respected figures in the field. Beginning his career at ESPN in 1996, Eisen became a staple on SportsCenter, where his wit and depth of knowledge shone through, endearing him to millions of viewers. In 2003, he transitioned to the NFL Network, further cementing his status as a premier sports broadcaster. As the host of NFL Total Access and later The Rich Eisen Show, he blended sports commentary with entertainment, showcasing his ability to engage with a wide array of topics and guests, from athletes to celebrities. Eisen's influence extends beyond traditional broadcasting. He's been instrumental in embracing digital platforms, bringing sports journalism into the new media age. His commitment to innovation and passion for sports has left an indelible mark on the industry, inspiring future generations of journalists. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to press the like button and subscribe. Our last documentary was about the life of NFL legend Randall Cunningham. Feel free to watch it if you want.